everyone, this is Angela and welcome to my channel, Angie the ENTJ. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. So today I was browsing the social media streets and oh my goodness, stop the press. A news video clip is circulating that originally aired in 2018 about the issues with the performance level or lack thereof of black men and boys overall and in general within the black community. Everything that's been discussed, or everything that was discussed within that video, mirrored the issues that many of us have pointed out with Dusties in Blackistan. This was an entire study that was completed, so this is giving scientific validation to what our collective of black women in particular, our collective observations have been. Now, before I get started, I wanted to be sure to give credit where credit is due, because see, over here, I do not mind using my flame to light other candles. So let's start. So I first learned about this video on Sheila Truelove's channel. I like Sheila so much because she provides a safe space for black women who just want to live their lives spouse free, along with being centered on a happy and healthy existence. You know, there's no judgment there. They're welcomed and embraced, and that's cool. That's cool. So Sheila Truelove posted a TikTok video from a user whose handle is known as Jazzy Reloaded, and she used it as a way, Jazzy Reloaded used it as a way to clap back at a dusty troll in her comment section. And it appeared also that Jazzy Reloaded got the video from Chef Tyree, who is also on TikTok. I enjoy Chef Tyree. She keeps me rolling. She airs out all of the dirty laundry in Blackistan, and she does it by going right there to the street corners, to the abandoned buildings, the blighted houses, and she airs it all out. So far, those were the only people that I could see. So if there are any others who need to be credited for this, then please put it in the comments section, because hey, I like to give credit where credit is due. So right now what we're going to do is watch the video, and then later on I will come back with my own commentary. So stay tuned.
New research finds class matters a lot less in America when it comes to economic mobility for black males. Income inequality is often cited as an important factor in holding people back. But a new analysis suggests black boys and black men face economic disadvantages even if they start off from a similar point of income and wealth as their white counterparts. Yamiche Alcindor is back with our conversation.
A new study released this week underscores just how big a gap African-American males face when it comes to moving up the economic ladder. Some of the findings are dramatic. White boys who grow up in rich households are likely to remain that way. Black boys who are also raised at the top are more likely to become poor instead of staying wealthy in their own adult households. Black boys fare worse than white boys in 99% of America, even when children grow up next to each other with parents who earn similar incomes. Raj Chetty of Stanford University is one of the co-authors of this study. He joins me now. Thank you so much, Raj, for being here. This report seems to indicate that black men will fare worse than white men, even if they are raised in households with similar incomes. Can you explain what's happening there?
Yeah, so one of the most striking findings of the study to us was that even if you take black and white boys raised in families at exactly the same income level, even at high income levels, you see that black boys end up with very different outcomes on average relative to white men. They're less likely to complete high school, they're less likely to go to college, they have significantly lower earnings in adulthood. And that phenomenon, interestingly, applies really only to black men. When we look at black versus white women, you see much more similarity in their outcomes if they grow up in families of similar income. So it's something unique to what's happening to black men in America that I think is really a concern for generations going forward in terms of perpetuating inequality by race.
And that inequality, it's really striking to me. One of the things that this study reports is that African American men who grow up in households with two parents that are earning $140,000, they fare about the same as a white young man who is raised by a single mother making just $60,000. How can that be true? Because it feels so counterintuitive. And what does that mean for African American families and their futures?
Yeah, what you're getting at really is the finding that there's a great deal of downward mobility in Black families. So you would have thought intuitively, that's what we expected going in, is when you get to a certain income level, maybe racial disparities disappear, that at some point kind of escape the poverty trap. But that really doesn't seem to be the case. Even once your parents reach a high income level, it continues to be the case that Black men have higher odds of essentially ending up in the bottom of the income distribution than staying at the top of the income distribution. And that's why you get this pattern that Black men's outcomes look comparable to white men growing up in relatively low or middle income families.
You mentioned in the study that there are unique obstacles that Black men face. Just to be clear, are we talking about racism and racial bias, or what are those unique obstacles that Black men in particular face?
Yeah, so to try to get at that, we look at how this varies across different parts of the country. So look neighborhood by neighborhood and ask, are there some neighborhoods in America where you see small Black-white gaps, or perhaps Black men doing better than white men? And surprisingly, you find essentially no such areas. In 99% of neighborhoods in America, you see better outcomes for white men than Black men. Now, digging in deeper, you can ask, where do we see relatively good outcomes for Black men? And there are a couple of factors that pop out from that analysis. One, you see that areas with larger rates of father presence in homes among Black men, you have better outcomes for Black boys there. So if there are more two-parent families, particularly among African-American households, you see better outcomes for Black boys. And second, you see that areas with lower levels of racial bias among whites tend to have better outcomes for Black men. So those are a couple of the factors that I think could be associated with these better outcomes, but I think more remains to be understood in terms of exactly what's driving these really sharp differences.
Gotcha. And I want to talk about the differences between Black women and Black men. There are some critiques out there, critics of the study out there, that are arguing that Black women who don't have long-term incomes weren't counted in your study. Is that accurate? And could you talk a little bit about your findings of Black women and the data that you used?
Yeah, so we include everyone. So the power of the study is that we're able to track, using anonymized data, about 20 million Americans from birth to adulthood, people born in the early 1980s whose incomes we're looking at in their late 30s. And that includes everyone, whether you're working or not. Every single person is counted. And so if you're not working, you're assigned an income of 0 and you're counted in the study. And what we show is that even taking that into account, Black women, conditional on growing up in a family that's at the same income level as white women, they end up with very similar outcomes. They have similar levels of earnings, similar wage rates, similar college attendance rates. They work at similar rates. So it's really remarkable how for women, you don't see that much of a Black-white disparity, very starkly different from men. Now, I should emphasize that doesn't mean that women are living in households with the same income levels, because Black women tend to be married to men who are Black, who have lower incomes, and they also are married at lower rates. And so if you look at household income, of course, you do see a significant disparity between Black women and white women. But when you look at their own earnings, they look very similar.
And then I guess I have one quick question, which is, tell me a little bit about the solutions here. You mentioned in the study that mentoring might be a possibility, that there might be some policy changes. What do you have to say about how this could change?
Yeah, so in thinking about the solutions, I think it's very important to remember that you continue to see these disparities even among kids growing up on the same street, going to the same schools, and so on. And so often solutions people think of are things like, we need to create greater opportunities for Black and white kids to grow up in the same neighborhoods, to attend the same schools, and so forth, to reduce residential or physical segregation in America. And while I think that can be extremely valuable, what this study shows is you need to do more than that. Even among kids growing up in the same area, you need to create the same opportunities for Black men to thrive as you see for white men. That could involve things like mentoring programs, for example, like the My Brother's Keeper program, targeted at low-income men to give them pathways to success. It could involve efforts to try to reduce racial bias. It could involve efforts to try to create more racial integration within schools and within neighborhoods so Black and white kids have similar opportunities.
Thank you so much, Raj, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. So, for what it's worth, this is validating many of our grievances about Dusties in Blackistan. It is saying that no matter how many opportunities are provided to the average black male, boy, young man, whoever, he will turn it into a pile of dust. And what I hear all the not-alls coming around. We understand this. Most of us here understand when we say majority, it doesn't mean all. So you don't have to keep telling us not all. We understand that, okay? So we're facing the majority right now, okay? So here's what I have to add to the story from an economic perspective. Right now in the world, there is currently a global shortage of girls and women that is estimated to be over 70 million. So why 70 million? It's simple. If you were to pair up every female human on the planet with every male human on the planet, there will be over 70 million males left, boys and men alike, okay? And so because of this shortage, it's estimated that if there were 50 million more women, right now they would be currently between the ages of 25 through 29. So not only is there a shortage of 70 million women, but 50 million of them would have been through, at the ages of 25 through 29 right now. And the reason why there is a shortage is due to factors such as female infanticide. Female infanticide means, oh, the baby was born, oops, it's a girl, gotta get rid of her. And that's exactly what happened in some places in the world. And then the other unfortunate one was gender selective abortion, which by gender selective abortion, it means I don't want to have a girl, I just only want to have a boy. Oops, I'm pregnant with a girl. So just sheerly for the fact that she's a girl, perfectly healthy baby, they're going to let her go to make room for a boy. And so that happened a lot. And femicide, we have that going on in Blackistan for sure. 1 every 5 hours, unfortunately. Somebody says it's happening more frequently than that now. And domestic violence. So I will cover the shortage of women and the surplus of men in more detail in another video in the future. So for right now, just know that for every woman who is single and who is currently, especially between the ages of 25 to 29, who seeks a monogamous and heterosexual relationship, for an example, she will potentially have over 50 million different men to choose from. Now, if we minus the roughly 3% of the global population of women who are not hetero, they're not interested in being in a hetero relationship with a man, that's not their cup of tea, that shrinks the availability of women to date, marry, and mate even further. Now, let's also deduct the number of women who are just satisfied with being single, regardless of how they orientate, okay? This shortage of women becomes even more dire, which means the competition amongst men globally to find a date or to find someone to marry and mate becomes even more fierce. So this is what I have to say to all women and girls. I'm also saying this to men, okay, because you have relatives that are girls and women as well, like your sisters, okay, and your daughters and so forth, mothers and fathers, you have your daughters, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. You need to understand your feminine relative's value beyond your own love for her, beyond your own ideations. You need to understand her value in the eyes of the world. Because see, here's what's going on. There are currently only 3.88 billion female humans, girls and women, on the planet. Meanwhile, there are more than 4 billion male humans, boys and men, on the planet. And that difference is giving more than 70 million men, including an estimated number of those men being between the ages of 25 to 29 out here who are desperate to find a mate. Most of them will be permanent bachelors, or they will be in a situation where they have to share access to a woman with other men. Some will do the unthinkable. They will kidnap and they will violate. This is the world that we are currently living in. And there's a reason why I'm highlighting this, because it is important for that you protect your female relatives, okay, and are vigilant about who is allowed to have access to her regardless of her orientation, because the desperation in the world is astronomical right now. Anyone or anything with a punana is not safe. Prentice Madden was a veterinarian who was arrested in Miami just last year for violating his animal patients. Okay, so it is for this reason. And so I'm about to come back to why I just said all of this and how it pertains to this video and whatnot. So it is for this reason you cannot entertain someone who lacks ambition, okay, or who is kind of off. Leave them alone. If a woman's instincts are up about a dude, then trust that something is off, and don't try to talk her out of it with all these little fancy fairy tale ideas. That's over with now. In fact, encourage her to follow her instincts. One of those instincts is going to let her know that if a man who as a boy grew up in a household where his parents earned six figures, but he himself is currently not earning six figures or more, that instinct is going to let her know that he is masculine deficient. Okay, now I understand that there are exceptions. Like you can have a guy that's kind of older. I'm talking about he may be 25. He's still living with his parents, but he's working on an engineering degree. He's working on a law degree. He's working on a medical degree. You know, that kind of thing. Okay, that is an exception. What I'm talking about is the overall. You know, if he is someone who's perfectly content with not working to secure a career, whether it is working for someone or owning his own business, something that will enable him to meet the demands of being a husband and a father, then you have to accept that he is just simply masculine deficient. And no, that does not mean that he is feminine. It means that he is masculine deficient. So stop hiding behind my dress and calling these men who are deficient feminine. I'm feminine. He's not, okay? Many of the men who commit crimes against women are imbalanced in their masculinity, and they abuse or misdirect their frustrations onto women. And it is high time that we stop allowing people like this to fill the cemeteries with our daughters, our cousins, our nieces, our aunts, our mothers, grandmothers, and so forth. Let's see reality for what it is. A male who is off balance is dangerous, and this danger is on the rise considering that there is a global surplus of more than 70 million of them. And now let's go back to Blackistan, and we're seeing that we have a group, the majority of whom, even when given the opportunities, they will not perform up to par. Okay, so now I like to offer a solution to whatever issues I present as a problem. So the solution would ideally in this situation be to create 70 more million girls and women who can be paired up with the 70 million excess men and boys globally, right? Well, that's not reality. No one can manufacture an adult woman overnight. First, she has to be conceived and born, then raised, then matured into adulthood in order to be available for a relationship. And that all depends on whether or not she chooses to be in a relationship to begin with. So that as a solution won't work, and it's not reality. So the other solution that will work is this. For people who have relatives that are boys and men, okay, if your family is serious about having their bloodline extend into the next generation, you want to see, children pitter-patter around your home, then you, either as a man, or you need to inform your relatives who are boys and men that you have to accept the fact that you're going to have to work hard to secure a territory or resources and provide them to your family. You will also have to produce opportunities. And for those of you who are the men who are unwilling, or you have male relatives that just will not, you know how they are, then that's fine too. But here's the thing. Here's what I suggest you do. You need to inform your male relatives This is going to be your life. You need to be frank with them. You will either find yourself in a situation where you have to share, take turns with other groups of men or another man or a group of men. In order to have access to a woman, you will have to have her, you'll have your day on the calendar. Maybe there are some women out there that can agree to that. Most won't, but some will. Okay, so either that's going to be your life, or you are going to be a permanent bachelor. You need to let him know that if under any circumstance he starts to weird out and give mass shooter or serial killer vibes, that you are going to report him to the authorities, because you do not want his imbalanced masculinity to lead to bringing shame and embarrassment to your family. So, if you're dealing with someone who's underperforming, and even though they're being given the opportunities, they're still not living up to par, that's a ticking time bomb on your hands. So I said all of this going back to Blackistan, that this video by PBS, in combination with the stats from the World Bank about the population globally, show that many black males are going to be considered leftovers. They are going to be at the bottom of the economic spectrum, and typically a significant number of leftover males become resentful, which can oftentimes lead to violence. So for those of you who have leftover males near you, you need to set boundaries. Black women in particular, your best bet is to stay away from Blackistan altogether. Don't allow your brother or your cousin or your nephew or your uncle to take up residence underneath your roof. Okay, you have to get beyond looking at the situation from the lens of someone that is helping a relative. This is global. If your male relative is deficient in his masculinity, then accept it as such, and don't answer the door when he comes knocking. Don't answer the phone when it comes ringing. Just see it as such. He's deficient. So, as a matter of fact, look at it like this. By you not helping him, maybe he will get some sufficiency in his masculinity on his own. Okay, let him know that he and his collective of leftover males need to figure out a solution to their issues, and they need to use their own resources while doing so. Okay, so that's all I have for now. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. Take care until next time.